I've been Executive Director of the Arkansas Educational Television Network, a statewide public media service, and I also serve as Vice Chair of the National PBS Board of Directors. So from the point of view of one broadcaster and media content provider, in our state, AETN provides free educational services and programming from PBS programs like Sesame Street to Nova, Ken Burns to, yes, Downton Abbey, and AETN favorites like Exploring Arkansas with Chuck Dovish, Arkansas Week, and documentaries like our recent Bayou Bartholomew. PBS ratings are up, unusual in today's broadcast environment, so people do respond to mission-based programming. Our mission is to serve everyone, everywhere, every day, free to all Arkansans, no matter their station in life or location. All distribution options are important: broadcast, cable, satellite, and online services that are helping AETN reach schools with our Arkansas Ideas Professional Development Service in partnership with the Arkansas Department of Education. Arkansas Ideas is a success, now one of, if not the largest, statewide online professional development portals in the nation, with currently 47,000 registered teachers and growing. Education has been at the heart of AETN for 5 decades, using connectivity to provide targeted educational services to educators, public, private, and homeschool. Adequate broadband is vital for expanding important services to education through Ideas, the AETN PBS Learning Media, which delivers thousands of video learning objects for teachers to use in their classrooms, PD credit, Common Core state standards resources, and a gateway to the teacher excellence support professional development that educators are now required to obtain before being evaluated by their administrators, and contains free online professional development available through AETN they can choose to support the teacher. Arkansas Ideas has also created an open access portal for non-licensed teachers utilized by the Teach for America program, the non-traditional licensure program at ADE, and anyone applying for an Arkansas teacher's license through reciprocity. With limited resources but using every media platform, AETN works to provide resources for children to learn and give Arkansans access to unique dramas, documentaries, history, public affairs, and arts programming. Accessible to all, which is vital, rural and urban. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Pitcock. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Lynn Pitcock. I am a Director of Government Affairs for Cox Communications here in Arkansas. Cox Communications is the state's largest traditional cable provider, offering a variety of products to our residential and business customers. Our footprint consists of a service area primarily covering the northwest corner of the state. Today we offer video services, broadband, and telephone to our Arkansas customers, and in the near future will likely offer home security services as well. Cox and almost all of the other providers here today offer a prime example of the convergence in technology found in the marketplace. As the Telecommunications Act of 1996 closes in on almost its 18th year as the primary regulatory framework for our industry, we see consumers gaining the full benefit of this legislation. It wasn't that long ago when Cox customers were offered only a handful of channels in an analog-only format and 56K modems. Today, we and others are using our advanced fiber-rich networks to deliver any number of competitive products, giving consumers a wide array of choices for video, internet, and telephone. I should mention it's just been 7 years since we launched our telephone product here in Arkansas. Today we are the 4th largest telephone company in the state and likely the largest competitive local exchange carrier. These advancements are made possible wholly from the investment of private capital into our business. Today Cox Communications offers almost 500 analog, digital, and high-definition channels here in Arkansas, speeds of 150 meg downstream to every customer that we serve, and telephone service in almost every community that we serve. We heard Mr. Merrifield from the RON network on the first panel today talk about the size of the network and their capacity. I'm proud to announce that our network produces the same speeds. Our business customers have access to up to 10 gigs down today. In fact, part of the RON network rides on our plant. Let me be quick to say that government subsidized competition has always been a concern for the entire telecommunications industry. As federal and state lawmakers continue to address last-mile broadband in America, we would again urge them and you to carefully consider the investments made by companies like Cox in the marketplace today before allowing government dollars to compete directly with those that have taken a financial risk. In 2010, Arkansas was found to be the most competitive state in the country for broadband services. While we recognize government-funded efforts to address last-mile broadband are needed and appropriate in areas where no service is available, government should focus its efforts in Arkansas and around the country on increasing broadband adoption through existing broadband providers rather than using taxpayer dollars to fund network construction and overbuilds in areas where broadband service is already available. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wilson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. My name is Mike Wilson, and I'm Senior Director of Government Affairs for Comcast of Arkansas, based here in Little Rock. Comcast provides video, broadband, phone, and home security services in Central Arkansas and in the West Memphis area. Since 1996, Comcast has invested over $206 million in system upgrades to make sure that our Arkansas customers have access to the same programming and technology choices available anywhere in the country. Our core video offering, Xfinity TV, now leverages IP technology and cloud-based servers to deliver an enormous library of video content when, where, and on whatever devices our customers choose. Our new entertainment platform, which we call X1, integrates social media, search, and third-party applications to redefine the viewing experience. But even with all of these choices and capabilities that the cable industry offers, when it comes to broadband, there are still too many Americans who are on the wrong side of the digital divide. There are programs here in Arkansas that the cable industry has implemented to address the barriers to broadband adoption. Cable companies like Cox and Suddenlink and Conway Corporation, in addition to others, partner with Connect to Compete, which provides low-cost internet access to families who have children participating in the free school lunch program. Comcast's program is called Internet Essentials and is the nation's largest and most comprehensive broadband adoption program. It provides low-cost broadband service for $9.95 a month, the option to purchase a Comcast-subsidized internet-ready computer for under $150, and multiple options to access free digital literacy training in print, online, and in person. Families must have one child eligible to participate in the free or reduced lunch programs, and includes public, parochial, private, and homeschool students. Since Comcast introduced Internet Essentials just 22 months ago, we've connected more than 220,000 families, or nearly 900,000 low-income families, to the power of internet in their homes, many for the very first time. In Arkansas alone, Comcast has connected over 750 low-income families. That's over 3,000 Arkansans who now benefit from access to the internet. Comcast did not accomplish our two-year results alone. We have partnered with all of our school districts, many nonprofit organizations like the Arkansas State PTA, the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and many faith-based organizations to help get the word out and assist with our training. All of these organizations have played a significant role in the program's success. Senator Pryor, thank you for this opportunity to testify today and share information about what the cable industry is doing to expand broadband adoption in Arkansas.
Thank you. Mr. Cryle.
Good morning. My name is Doug Cryle. I'm Executive Director of the Arkansas Broadcasters Association. ABA is a not-for-profit trade association representing approximately 190 radio stations and 15 television stations in Arkansas, and that is pretty much everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you and briefly discuss some of the key issues impacting broadcasters in Arkansas. Many of our member stations, particularly the radio stations, are locally owned and operate in the rural parts of Arkansas. As such, they play a vital role in providing emergency information and contributing to the day-to-day lives of listeners and viewers who live in those areas. When a sudden flood killed 20 campers at a remote campground in southwest Arkansas in 2010, radio and TV stations were the only sources of information as the heavy rain developed. The campground was outside the range of a nearby NOAA weather station. The broadcast stations also became the source of information on victims and survivors. After Hurricane Katrina, the Arkansas Parks and Tourism Agency developed a system to help evacuees from nearby Louisiana and Mississippi get updated information about the availability of food and shelter in Arkansas. Key to that system's success was the utilization of radio and TV stations to tell evacuees about the system. Because many of our member radio stations are essentially family-owned and operate on very slim profit margins, ABA feels compelled to argue against congressional efforts to impose a new licensing fee for musical performers. We believe strongly the radio station's provision of free airtime to play performers' music is in itself fair compensation. Any additional fees could literally force some stations off the air. Other key issues focus more on the television side of our industry. Changes to the retransmission consent system proposed by the pay TV industry would harm stations here. Currently, financial terms of cable, satellite, and telecommunication coverage carriage of local market TV stations members are negotiated in a free and open marketplace. Many times our small market TV station members must negotiate against very large pay TV providers. Despite this, broadcasters support the market-based system Congress created, which results in both sides reaching an agreement keeping broadcast stations on pay TV systems without interruption in almost all cases. And of course, broadcast signals are always available to consumers free over the air via an antenna. The other issue of concern to TV broadcasters involves the FCC's upcoming auction of broadcast spectrum. While the ABA does not oppose a truly voluntary spectrum auction, we agree with the National Association of Broadcasters the process must ensure that broadcasters who do not participate in the auction retain their current coverage areas so they can continue to serve their local communities. We also believe the FCC should work to limit the number of stations that must move to new channels during the repacking process. Currently, over 700,000 television viewers in Arkansas receive all of their TV programming over the air. Forced channel changes will disrupt those viewing habits, harming consumers and broadcasters. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuhrer.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm LaDawn Fuhrer, an Arkansas native and the Mid-South Regional Manager of Community and Government Relations for Suddenlink. Our team oversees Suddenlink's operations here in Arkansas, plus 3 other Delta states. Suddenlink is the second largest cable broadband company in Arkansas, and we serve towns like Jonesboro, Russellville, Walnut Ridge, Batesville, Mountain Home, Hot Springs Village, El Dorado, and a vibrant mix of other larger, smaller, and rural communities. We also enjoy a productive working relationship with these communities, and we provide the most advanced TV, internet, phone service, and in some places home security available in those areas to approximately 110,000 residential subscribers and 70,000 business subscribers. We work hard every day to provide our customers with a superior level of care. And in addition to this customer care, we also work to make a real difference in the lives of our employees and the communities where we live and we work. For example, since 2008, we've helped to e-cycle more than 200 tons of electronic waste, keeping it out of Arkansas landfills. We support education in Arkansas at all levels through a multitude of commitments. We provide our video and internet services to school districts across the state. We are also a participant in the National Connect to Compete initiative. Through that effort, we offer steeply discounted broadband service for qualifying low-income families with at least one child enrolled in the National School Lunch Program, helping to bridge the digital divide. We invest in our people, providing good jobs and benefits to more than 300 residents of Arkansas. And we are constantly improving our services with over $170 million in capital invested in Arkansas since 2006, and that includes $20 million that's planned for 2013. Those investments have delivered a better TV experience with more high-definition channels, an expanded video-on-demand library, and technologies that provide our customers more ways to enjoy their favorite news, sports, dramas, and comedies, both inside and outside the home. These investments have also delivered a better internet experience with download speeds of 50 and 107 megabits per second widely available in our Arkansas service areas. These speeds are highly comparable to other large markets. Our investments in Arkansas have also extended our services to new areas. And most importantly, in 2012, we invested $4 million to construct a 162-mile fiber ring that connects our communities to one another, our national backbone, and the larger internet. This addition enhances the reliability and the robustness of the broadband services, and we're able to bring many Arkansas communities this service, both large and small communities. In conclusion, Suddenlink is poised for the future. We are committed and a conscientious member of the communities where we live and serve, and we're very proud to be an industry leader in this great state. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Let me also note that all of our panelists done a great job today of keeping their comments to the 3 minutes. It's pretty common in Washington for them to run on and on and on. And so thank you all. You guys have shown great discipline, but also you just typical Arkansas, you just want to get down to the meat and potatoes and don't have to hear yourself talk. So anyway, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Let me start with Mr. Kreil, and yeah, I know that you have television and radio members.
Yes, sir.
And I assume that the number of your, owners have gone down over the years. And so there's been some consolidation and whatnot. But I'm curious about how the internet has changed the broadcast business model. Tell us how it's changing the broadcast business model.
Well, the broadcasters have had to adopt the internet and find the best ways to utilize it. Putting their radio station signals on the internet is very common, even in the smaller market stations. Using a website to provide news and information to their listeners and viewers has become crucial. It's really a matter of pairing the two together and providing the services to as many people as you can. I think radio stations that haven't adopted to that and started to use the internet are few and far between. I can't actually tell you of any off the top of my head that don't have some type of internet presence. And many of them really rely on it for sporting events in particular, where there are people out of the market or even out of the state who want to hear the play-by-play broadcast the local stations are doing.
Yeah. Well, I can speak firsthand to that because I use that sometime. Let me ask about AETN. I know you're a little different model than what most of Mr. Kreil's members are, but how has the internet changed the model, the business model, so to speak, for AETN?
Well, certainly the education part, which we've always done, it's in our name, but the ability to do online services, digital services, allowed us, when the Lakeview decision came down, to really expand our educational services and jump full force into professional development. Without the internet capability, that would have been extremely difficult for us to grow the way that we did. And that happened in 2005, and now we have 47,000 teachers who are using, Arkansas teachers who are using it, and in fact, teachers from every nation are using the system. So if they were to try to find AETN broadcast, it wouldn't work. It's still extremely important to us, the broadcast part of it, as are our other partners here, but internet-based activities has really been the growth area for AETN.
And let's talk about rural areas. Are you having trouble getting that out into rural Arkansas?
I wouldn't say particularly. We've had great response. In fact, the Arkansas Ideas program really worked initially because of its attractiveness to rural areas. I think our biggest problem for rural is funding, obviously, to be able to replace equipment with the loss of PTFP and some other programs federally. That's been a big hindrance to us. So when I look at what we're doing now, I feel pretty confident what we can do in 5 years, especially capital-based for a nonprofit like us, is a difficult enterprise.
I should know this, and I don't, but does ATN follow the same model that the commercial broadcaster does in terms of getting their signal carried on a cable system? Tell us how that works.
Well, in a rural area, they oftentimes take it off of our broadcast signal, off the tower. Other than that, we have some landlines with Conway Corp, with Comcast, and a few others. So yes, we do a very similar. In rural, they're going to do very much a similar thing, especially for many rural areas for cable and satellite. They're going to take our signal off air and translate that.
And how does the money work there? How does the money work with public broadcast and cable?
Not well enough.
That's what we always hear, right?
We're there. We appreciate that. That's mandated. We don't receive any income from cable or satellite. So that model is great for them, and we're pleased to be there, but that's how come you occasionally see me on pledge drives and other things. We're a mix of some federal support. Certainly, we're a state agency for the infrastructure and education, and obviously viewer contributions. But in terms of cable, while we're pleased to be there, and satellite, we don't receive any of that revenue.
And AETN is a statewide network in a sense. And can you tell if the viewers, the numbers are going down in terms of people that are just picking up over the air, or is that saying about the same?
Well, Doug's 700,000 is a very prominent figure for us. I think with cord cutters, I think some of the evidence is it's probably going up a little bit, but it certainly has not gone down in recent years. It's leveled out. But again, for us, it's a little bit different to talk about because so much of the cable signal and satellite signal in very rural areas comes off of our broadcast signal. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to kind of parse that out, if that makes any sense.
Yep, that does. And I know that you've gone through this digital television transition. Mm-hmm. Is all that behind you now? And are you still broadcasting on analog at all?
No.
And so it's all digital. And what's your sense of people adopting, digital?
I think it's happening pretty rapidly because it's like when LP records, they didn't die out because anybody put a rule. It's just nobody made them anymore.
Right.
And I think that's what's happened with analog and digital. Mm-hmm. People have responded and they've adapted pretty quickly to it.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Pitcock, let me ask you, I'm going to change gears here. I know that right now there's a dispute between CBS and Time Warner about the signal and who carries what and how much everybody pays. And that is that nationwide or is that just in isolated areas?
The disputes?
Yeah, the CBS Time Warner one. Isn't it on the West Coast? You know?
Yeah, I believe it's just in California, Senator.
My memory is that we have not had those kind of disputes here.
No, we have.
And my understanding is that's because everybody works really hard to try to make it work.
The disputes have taken place in Arkansas. And on some occasions, broadcasters have gone dark as a result of being able to come to terms with the multi-service provider, whether it's a satellite company or a cable company. As you're well aware, there's legislation in Washington that's been proposed right now to address this to some degree. I think the cable industry's position, and certainly the position of Cox Communications, is we want to do what's in the best interest of the consumer. And if that means having some sort of cooling off period where instead of the cable being removed, and I need to reassure everybody that we cannot carry a broadcaster without their specific consent. It's usually left to the point where it's being told that a cable provider, a satellite provider, is being pulled off of the network. And the truth of it is we can't carry them anymore. By law, we can't carry them. So it would certainly be our position that if we found ourselves where a contract would expire, that there be some type of cooling off period that would allow us, as we continue to negotiate, to keep those in place.
Yeah, I think most viewers have no idea how this really works, all the contractual back and forth on that. And but it's been on the books that way for 20 plus years. I'm not quite sure when it all started. 96 Act, I guess. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I know we're not going to solve that today, but that does come up periodically, and I think Arkansans kind of wonder why that is and what's going on there. And I think that what you have is, clearly the cable companies, they have legitimate reasons for taking their position, but also let's give the broadcasters a chance just to talk about their view of that. I know we're not going to solve this today, but since I've broached it, let's go ahead and hear from the broadcasters as well.
Well, I think the broadcast industry basically believes that because these negotiations do reach an agreement 99% of the time, they may go right down to the 11th hour, and that 11th hour may get pushed back once or twice or three times. Fort Smith just recently went right down to the wire.
That's right.
But there was an agreement reached, and we just believe the system as it's structured right now works and should continue to work. I think the biggest thing is the public needs to understand that 20 years ago, the networks paid the local television stations to carry the network signal. That's completely upside down now. And this is why the retransmission consent negotiations are so much more prominent than they were even 10 years ago. Because in the past, the television stations let the cable companies carry them under terms of the must-carry laws. But now that they're not getting the revenue from the network, the retransmission consent negotiations have become much more prominent even for the small television stations. And that's where we just believe that it's working most of the time. The Time Warner case right now is really a rarity. You don't hear about all the ones that succeed.
Ms. Wilson, I don't want these guys to have all the fun. I want to ask you a question as well. And that is something that I know that Comcast and the other cable companies are acutely aware of, and that is the cost of programming. And I know that it's hard to talk with too much specificity about it because of, it's just hard to talk that for legal reasons. But my understanding is the cost of programming continues to go up. And there's a bill in Washington that Senator McCain is offering on a la carte. And again, just because some people here at Arkansas are not that familiar with that issue, could you give us just the sort of 1-minute summary of that and sort of how Comcast views all that?
Well, I think the concerns from the cable industry standpoint when it comes to a la carte is that it's very difficult. I mean, a lot of times that the programmers include groups of programs during the negotiations, and one channel may be required if you purchase another one. So I think it's and again, Senator, this is an issue that's handled on levels much higher than mine, but it's a problem that I think that we're concerned. I think the biggest concern, I think, when you come to a la carte is that there are some programs, some niche programs that if they weren't combined may not ever see, the viewers may never be able to see. So I think that's the biggest concern.
Mm-hmm. But is it true that your cost of programming continues to go up in terms of what
Without a doubt, yes,
content providers are charging you? And do you have that same experience?
Yes, we do. Costs are constantly going up, and you hear, you actually hear it reported, what the different networks say because they're taking on different programming, different sports programming. I mean, they've actually become very, forward about talking about what it's costing. And what we try to do is to package everything as cost effective for the consumers. We have tiering. We have different ways that they can bundle to keep all their costs down. And like Mr. Wilson said, there are a lot of networks. I mean, if you look at how many networks have grown and changed over the years. There are networks that might not have even survived if they had been offered a la carte because they were in a bundle and they could offer some niche programming that took off and got the network some recognition. And that's the bottom line, is to give our consumers options, cost effectiveness, and entertainment. And so by bundling and trying to keep our cost factors down for them is the best way we can do it. But it is a struggle. I mean, we all see that.
Because isn't it true that the more you have to pay for the programming, at some point you're going to have to pass that on to the customer?
Exactly. And it's a issue of where do you want to do that, and we try every year when we do take, anytime we do take a rate increase, we don't ever pass on the full amount that we're paying to the customer, but just a slight increase just to help offset that, because we want to keep a variety for them. We want to keep it fresh, and we want to offer them the most current programming possible. So it is a struggle, though.
And Mr. Wilson, I guess several of you mentioned this Connect to Compete initiative. And tell us more about that. Tell us what you're doing, your company.
This is probably one of the most exciting things that the industry has become involved in, and the entire industry is getting behind it. And again, we know that there are areas where broadband is available, but the consumer has made a conscious decision not to. And I think it was mentioned earlier in some of the testimony that part of it is digital literacy, part of it is cost, and what we're trying to do with these programs is address all of these. All of the programs, I think, are basically the same. I can really speak more to Comcast Internet Essentials, but we are targeting families that have a child on the free or reduced lunch program and allow them service for $9.95 a month, access to a computer for $150. And what we've found is the partnerships that we've formed in order to get the word out have been extremely beneficial and have worked extremely well. And if I could give you one example of a partnership that we have with the Little Rock School District, they have a program called Computer for Kids. And what the school district does is there's a number of computers that are taken out of the schools every single year. They take all of those computers, take them to the Metro Votech School, right down the street here, as a matter of fact, and refurbish them. And they may get, the ratio may be 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, but they refurbish these computers. We work closely with them, and they have a computer power day where, again, it's the same families that have a child on the free or reduced lunch program can come in and purchase a computer for $40. So we've worked closely with them. It's been extremely successful. It's partnerships like that I think are really benefiting and allow us to move forward with this program, and we're seeing the results.
Good. Mr. Cryle, let me ask about, I think that you said in your testimony, you sort of raised the question, or maybe you and I talked about this separately. I can't remember if it was in your testimony or not, but the fact that you think more people are taking the over-the-air signal now, is that right?
Yes.
And tell me what you attribute that to. Is it the quality of the picture they can get with digital, or is it the cost of their alternatives, either cable, satellite, or what is that?
In some cases, it is a cost factor. People are turning back to over-the-air television because they think their cable or satellite bill has gotten to be too expensive. And also because there is a trend, particularly among younger viewers, that they don't have to watch a show at 7 o'clock at night. They can watch it the next day when it's on demand, or they can watch it next day via Netflix or Hulu or one of those type of services, which now can be pretty much universally put up on your television screen. And so by doing the cord cutting route, they pay $8.95 a month for Hulu and $8.95 a month for Netflix, take their free over-the-air television. What they're losing is the ESPNs of the world for live sporting events and things like that. So it's a balancing act. But yes, people are doing that. And part of it is the quality of the digital picture. I'm a Comcast customer, but in moving to a new house, we wanted a TV in an office area that would have required me having Comcast come in and rewire. So I bought a 19-inch digital TV and a $24.95 digital indoor antenna. It's a flat little white box about that thick. The picture is beautiful. I was surprised at how good it was, and all the local stations come in. And I'm an old fogey, but I can begin to see what somebody a little bit younger, we still like to watch that 7 o'clock show at 7 o'clock at night. But I can see where somebody younger who isn't tied to the house so much, who's busy with outdoor activities, with kid activities, they could adapt and adopt to that way of watching television.
Let me ask you, Mr. Cryle, I want to ask one of Commissioner Rosenworcel's favorite questions here about spectrum. I'm assuming it's too early for you to know how the Arkansas television stations might, in this voluntary spectrum auction, how much of their spectrum they might be willing to give up, or are you sensing where this is going in Arkansas?
There is not the spectrum shortage in Arkansas. There is in the major metropolitan areas and some of the border states in particular. We don't think there will be an incredible demand by the AT&Ts, the Verizons of the world for Arkansas spectrum. There may be one or two small television stations that are not profitable, that might be willing to voluntarily give up their bandwidth and be repacked on one other station's signal. But I just don't see a whole lot of that here. The biggest thing we're concerned about is just moving the stations around channel-wise again, because we still get calls about the digital conversion, and people are still confused about what happened there and where they find their TV stations even after all these years. And so we're going to do that to a degree, perhaps all over again with the repacking.
You know, one of the things we talk about in Washington on this subcommittee is the fact that the federal government owns a lot of spectrum, and people point to the Department of Defense. There are other agencies too, but DOD is probably the big one. But you know, in talking to them, it's interesting because one of the things they say is, look, we're just like the general public. We're using more spectrum. More and more of our stuff is wireless and needs that spectrum. And it could be everything from, you know, some of their weapon systems to just how they communicate and just the things that they do. They're more mobile than ever, just like everybody else is. So that technology is out there. So trying to get the federal government, now there is a plan now that's being floated, and I don't know if it's in the final form yet, but there is a plan being floated. So we'll see how that works out. But that is another factor in all of this equation. And we talk about spectrum, and the goal is to try to make spectrum available so people can have more access to wireless devices, you know, the consuming public can. Now, Commissioner Rosenworcel, I feel like you've sat through this and you may have some comments, or you may, I mean, we've talked about lots of different things. Some are pending before the FCC, and some are things that you just talk about a lot at FCC. So do you have any comments?
Well, first of all, let me put on my microphone. We do have these big spectrum auctions coming up, and they are going to have big impact on the way we dole out the airwaves in this country. So we are keenly aware of their impact or potential impact on broadcasters, even in markets where there may not be that much demand for mobile broadband right now. So I would say to the Arkansas broadcasters that under the law, we do have an obligation in the repacking process to make sure that stations maintain their geographic and population coverage. That's in the law, that's important, and it's certainly something we're going to do. With respect to retransmission consent, I think I agree with Senator Pryor. We may not be able to solve that today.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
But I do think it is important to acknowledge that the vast majority of those negotiations are uneventful, and they work. It's just we do have these situations where consumers get caught in the crossfire, and they are the collateral damage in disputes like this, where they can't turn on the television and see their local game or the local news or their favorite shows. So if they go on for an extended period of time, I think at some point the FCC or Congress will start paying more attention. So it's in everyone's interest to make sure that they're resolved quickly and cleanly and without consumer disruption.
Like maybe before football season starts?
Like maybe.
That's what they were saying on the, I think it was on NPR, they were saying that the other day, that they thought that was one of the big factors in them getting that wrapped up. So let me do what I did with the other panels. Let me ask if anyone has any other comments or questions, because we've talked about a lot of different things here, and didn't know if anyone wanted to add anything or comment on anything further.
I might just add
Yeah.
to buttress on Doug's comment about the repacking. You know, our concern is the incredible cost, because we all went through, in AETN's case, it was $25 million to do 6 transmitters. And to have to do that again in a climate where fundraising is extremely difficult for us is hard for us to imagine. And it's at a time when people are using our product more than ever. So it's a concern to us, obviously.
You maybe covered this earlier, but give us a feel for AE10's financial situation. I know you get some federal government funds, and of course you're a state entity. So there's some money there, I'm sure, and then you get a lot from your viewers. So, and then some foundation, et cetera. So is there a mix you can tell us about?
We get about 10% from federal sources. Everything I told you this earlier, everything AETN receives from federal sources amounts to 13 seconds of annual federal spending. And all public media gets, television, radio, is about an hour. So it's very important to us. It's, when you hear all the arguments, it's not necessarily about the overall money. That's about 10%, about 50%, 60% if you add in the ADE work with us on education. It comes from state sources, and then the rest comes from viewer contributions. The programs that people watch at night or on weekends, the Downton Abbeys, the Sesame Streets, the Ken Burns, those are paid for by viewer contributions here in Arkansas. We tried to, for our 50 years, always tried to do it that way. So that's basically the mix. But we're doing relatively well. We don't have the resources that some commercial stations do, but we also don't have some of the limitations they do in what we can broadcast and the mission-based broadcasting. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. And is it true that your viewership, PBS's viewership, is actually going up?
it was up 5% last year. Downton Abbey certainly helps, but that's only one program. So it's up across the board. We don't get the same kind of ratings material and feedback here at AETN, but our anecdotal and the evidence we get is it's also up here too. Certainly our responses and things like that. Funding not necessarily, because that's always a struggle, but certainly the use. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think I've used the analogy before that when people would always say there are stations that can take our place, the one example was the Learning Channel in 1972, but they couldn't make any money, so now they call themselves TLC, and their big program is Honey Boo Boo. And that's fine for some people, not criticizing that, and certainly it has a place, but we have continued to maintain and somewhat grow because we haven't gone in that direction. Of course, we're funded differently too.
Right. Well, listen, this is good. Does anybody else have any questions or closing comments or anything? First, let me say thank you again for being here and doing this. I know you all prepared for this and have spent your whole day with us here at the Arkansas Electric Co-ops, and we appreciate that. And we, again, want to thank the co-ops for providing their facilities today. It's been a great public service, and we appreciate them. What we're going to do now is we're going to close down the hearing, and again, thank everybody for coming, all the